The box. I don't remember taking the pictures. That's the first thing I need to make clear. Not because it sounds dramatic or important, but because I've spent the last 3 days trying to convince myself that I did. That there's some version of me I've forgotten, some late-night habit or weird phase where I picked up a camera and documented things. But no matter how hard I try, I can't place them. And I remember everything. Or at least, I used to think I did. The house wasn't mine. It belonged to my parents. Or it used to. After they died, everything just sat. No one wanted to deal with it. Not the furniture, not the clothes, not the quiet way the place seemed to hold its breath when you stepped inside. So it fell to me. It always does, doesn't it? The things no one else wants. I hadn't been back in years. The driveway was smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was just bigger. The trees along the side of the house had grown wild, branches clawing at the siding like they were trying to get in, or keep something from getting out. I almost turned around. Actually, that's not true. I did turn around. I sat in my car with the engine running, staring at the house through the windshield, telling myself I could come back another day. But the thing about another day is that it never really exists. It's just a nicer way of saying not now. So I killed the engine. And the silence hit me like a dropped weight. Inside, everything smelled the same. Not bad, not rotten, just old. Like time had been sitting in the corners collecting dust. I didn't wander. I didn't explore. I went straight to the hallway closet. I don't know why. I hadn't thought about that closet in years. But the moment I stepped inside, it was like something pulled me toward it. Not physically. Nothing that obvious. Just a feeling. A quiet certainty that there was something in there. Something I needed to see. The door stuck when I opened it. It always had. You had to pull it a certain way, lift slightly as you turned the knob. My hand remembered before I did. That bothered me more than it should have. Inside was exactly what you'd expect. Coats that hadn't been worn in years. A vacuum cleaner that probably didn't work. A few cardboard boxes stacked unevenly, like someone had meant to organize them and just didn't. I almost left. If I had, none of this would have happened. It was the smallest box that caught my attention. No label, no tape, just sitting there, half hidden behind a larger one like it didn't want to be found. I don't know why I picked it up. I wish I didn't. It was lighter than I expected. When I opened it, I thought at first it was empty. Then I saw the edges. Photographs. Dozens of them. Stacked loosely inside. I remember feeling confused. Not scared. Not yet. Just confused. Because I didn't recognize any of them. The first photo I pulled out was of a backyard. My backyard. There was no mistaking it. The old swing set. The fence with the broken slat near the corner. The tree my dad used to complain about because the roots kept pushing up through the lawn. I knew that yard. I grew up in it. But I didn't recognize the picture. It was taken from above. Not high up, not like from a second-story window or anything like that. More like someone standing on something, or holding the camera just a little too high. Angled down, watching. I flipped it over. Nothing. No date, no writing. Just the picture. The next one was worse. Same yard, different day. I was in it. I couldn't have been older than 8. I was standing near the swing set, looking off to the side like someone had called my name. Except, there was no one there. I stared at it for a long time, trying to remember, trying to place the moment. what day it was, why I was outside, who might have been with me, anything. But there was nothing, just a blank space where a memory should have been. That's when I started to feel it. Not fear, not exactly. Just this slow, sinking realization that something wasn't right, because someone had taken that picture. And if I didn't remember it, that meant one thing. I wasn't the one behind the camera. I went through more after that. I don't know why. I should have stopped, put the box back, left the house, pretended I never found them. But I didn't. Each photo was the same. Different days, different angles, always of me, always from somewhere I shouldn't have been seen from. Behind trees, through windows, from across the street. One of them was taken at night. That one, I wish I hadn't looked at for as long as I did. It showed my bedroom window. The light was on. You could see inside. You could see me, sleeping. The photo was taken from outside, close, too close. I remember checking the curtains after that, even though I knew it didn't matter, even though it had already happened. That's when I noticed something else, something I hadn't seen at first, in the reflection of the glass. Faint, easy to miss, a shape, not clear enough to make out details, not enough to say who it was, but enough to know. Someone was standing there, holding the camera, watching me sleep. And for the first time since opening the box, I felt it. Fear. Because I didn't remember that night. I didn't remember any of these nights. And something in the back of my mind, something small and quiet and buried, kept whispering the same thing over and over again. You were never supposed to remember.
Back in 2014, I decided to visit my parents at my old home back in northwest Montana. It's an old house in the middle of a sparsely populated area surrounded by woods, with an especially dense spot behind my house. I always used to play back there as a kid, building small forts and carving on sticks that I found, making wooden knives and spears and whatnot. But my parents always told me not to go too deep or I might get lost, and there are a lot of bears in the area anyway. One day, when I was visiting my parents, I had lunch and decided that I would go for a walk. My father suggested that I should walk along the driveway since it was pretty long, but I told him I wanted to walk in the woods for some of the nostalgia. I walked out the back door and the memories came flooding back. Everything looked pretty much the same. Even one of my old forts from years earlier was still standing. I decided to walk deeper, just to see what I was missing out on in my earlier life. The brush was a lot thicker and a bit hard to get through. Eventually, I came into a small clearing, where I saw a small house. It was old and worn out, but was still completely intact and had a moldy white coat of paint. The moment I saw the house, I suddenly felt a weird feeling of paranoia, like something was watching me. I walked closer and noticed that the door was slightly open. I would have normally left it alone and walked away since somebody could still be living here. But I felt like I needed to go in, like something was pulling me in. I decided to go in, and it wasn't much to write home about. Just some old furniture and kitchen appliances and a bunch of other dusty stuff you'd expect to find in an abandoned home. I then found the basement door. I really thought I should turn back now because nobody wants to be in a dark basement, in a house in the middle of nowhere, but that strange feeling was still beckoning to me, making me go in. I had to use my phone flashlight because the basement was really dark. Mostly, normal things like old shelves and canned food were down there, as you most likely you would expect. I then heard a sound that gave me chills. I couldn't tell which direction it came from, but I heard a dog growling. I then walked to the other end of the basement, and that's when I see this door. It was a brown door with some text inscribed on it. Doggy room. I was really confused because I couldn't figure out what that exactly meant, but I knew there was only one way of figuring it out. I slowly opened the door and raised my phone. What I saw still haunts me to this day, and when I saw it, my stomach dropped. The room was full of dog corpses. They were scattered across the floor, hanging from the ceiling and nailed to the wall. It was like macabre art, and I felt like I was going to throw up. The paranoia intensified, and I felt like I was going to die there. The growling got louder and louder, and I realized it was from a dog that was nailed to a wall in a crucifix-like position. Its eyes were open and it looked straight at me, and that's when I heard a whisper in my ear, "It hurts!" I bolted out of that room, up the stairs, and out of that house. The whole time I could hear barking behind me, and, strangely, the sounds of a baby crying. I sprinted all the way back home and called the police. About an hour later, I was back at the house with 3 officers. They looked all throughout the house, but they couldn't find the room. I showed them the spot where I found it, but it was just a blank wall replaced with a picture of a man with a small child in his arms. I later asked my parents if they knew anything about the house. They told me it used to belong to a man named John. John had a son named Luke, who was killed by their family dog when he was a toddler. John killed the dog, and from that day on, he never stopped talking about how much he hated dogs. John died in 2002, and the house has been abandoned ever since. I still have trouble sleeping some nights. I can't get the image of the dog out of my head. Its piercing eyes still seem to watch me from my mind, and sometimes I swear I hear a growling from somewhere. My roommate is gone, and that's not the weird part. Sometimes she stays out late, with her boyfriend, or out partying. So at first I didn't think much of it. But today, something felt off. When I got back to the apartment, I could hear her inside. She was on the phone, speaking in German. I didn't understand what she was saying, but I recognized her voice. And there was someone else on the line too, an older woman. I stood outside the door for a moment, listening. Then I put my key into the lock. As I turned it, she was still talking. But the second the door opened, silence. She was gone. There's a strange moment when your brain hears 2 sounds at once, and it kind of glitches. That's what it felt like. The sound of the key turning and her voice overlapping. But when the door opened, the room was completely empty. I told myself she was probably in another room, so I ignored it. For a few days, she wasn't there. Her food was still in the fridge, a salad slowly wilting. Yesterday I asked my RA, Thomas. He was in the kitchen cooking something. Said it was Danish food. After about an hour while he was boiling noodles, I walked in and asked him if he'd seen my roommate recently. He turned around and said, "Your roommate?" Like he had no idea what I meant. "Yeah," I said. "Liesel, you've seen her." He just stared at me, confused, so I described her. Long light hair, glasses, freckles, German. "Oh," he said, and turned back to the sink. "I thought you lived alone." That didn't make sense. He had met her before. I had seen them talk. They'd even greeted each other in the kitchen. "You're my RA," I said. "How do you not know who my roommate is?" He shrugged. "I have a lot of residents. You're not even on my hallway." I crossed my arms. "I'm worried. I haven't seen her in a while." "Why don't you just text her?" I did. She hasn't responded. He didn't seem concerned at all. "She's probably fine," he said casually. "Probably just with her boyfriend." And that was it. No help. Nothing. The only strange thing about that conversation was that Thomas had completely forgotten her. My friends still remembered her. They remembered me complaining about how she never turned off the lights, or how she'd spend hours doing her nails, filling the room with the smell of polish. But Thomas acted like she never existed. And then, this morning happened. I woke up early because of a smell. Something bad. It was coming from under her bed. She had those long curtains hanging down, so it was hard to see underneath. I lifted them, and there was a dog, just sitting there. A small mutt, short brown fur, long nose, alive. It had clearly been there for a while. That smell came from it. The dog just stared at me. Its eyes, small and dark, unblinking. I didn't like it, not at all. So I dropped the curtain and I called campus police. They told me to take it to a kennel. I said I didn't have a car. When I went back and lifted the curtain again, the dog was gone. In its place was a carving, a wooden carving of a dog. Same shape, same posture, but completely still, cold, not alive. The surface was smooth, almost too smooth. There were dents where the eyes should be, and the tail hung stiff, like dead wood. I called Thomas. He came over within 5 minutes. He looked like he had just woken up. "There's a wooden dog under your roommate's bed," he said. "Yeah." He reached under the bed and pulled it out, and somehow it looked smaller, small enough to fit in his hand. "That's weird," he said. "I didn't know Liesel liked dogs." I stared at him. "Last time I checked, you didn't even know Liesel." He didn't respond. I took the carving from him and placed it on my desk, and that's where it is right now. I don't like it. I feel like I should put it back under her bed before she comes back. But there's something else now. Something in her bed, under the covers. I can't see it clearly. It's too dark, but it hasn't moved, and I know it's not her.